Mr. Rahman was a man who had everything people said they wanted. He was the CEO of a big company. His name was known in many places. He wore expensive suits, drove a shiny car, and lived in a large house. But despite all this, he often felt very lonely. Every Saturday afternoon, Mr. Rahman would walk to Maple Street Park. He did this quietly, without telling anyone. He liked to sit on the same old wooden bench near a small pond. The bench was old and a little cracked, but it was his place to think. This Saturday was cloudy. The sky was full of gray clouds that looked like they might cry at any moment. The park was quiet. Few people were there. The wind was soft, and the leaves on the trees moved gently. Mr. Rahman sat on the bench and looked at the water. Ducks floated happily, but he did not watch them. He looked far away, thinking about many things. About his life, his work, and how empty he sometimes felt inside. He thought about his family, too. He had a sister and a mother. But he had not seen them in a long time. They had tried to call him, but he was always busy. The phone calls stopped. The messages stopped. Now, the silence felt heavy. He sighed and looked down at the ground. His hands were folded on his lap. His eyes were tired. People who saw him would think he was just resting. But he was thinking deeply about his life and what it had become. Suddenly, he heard a small voice near him. "Sir, you dropped this," said a little girl. Mr. Rahman looked down. A small hand held out a tiny notebook. He realized it had fallen from his briefcase without him noticing. "Thank you," he said quietly, taking the notebook. The little girl looked at him with bright eyes. She was not more than 7 years old. Her hair was tied in 2 simple braids. She wore an old yellow dress that was a little dirty. She held a small stuffed rabbit tightly in her arms. Instead of leaving, she sat down on the other side of the bench. "Why are you sitting here all alone?" she asked with curiosity. Mr. Rahman smiled faintly, not used to being asked such a question by a child. "I like to sit here. It is peaceful," he said. The girl looked at him carefully. "Are you sad?" she asked simply. He was surprised. No one had asked him that in a long time. He thought for a moment and then nodded slowly. "Maybe I am." The little girl smiled softly. "Me too." Her answer made Mr. Rahman look at her more closely. She seemed small and fragile, but her eyes were strong and full of life. "What is your name?" he asked. "I am Pihu," she said proudly. "I am Rahman," he said, feeling a small connection forming between them. Pihu looked around the park. "Do you come here every week?" He nodded. "Why?" "Because it reminds me of good times," he said quietly. Pihu smiled again. "I come here because I miss my papa." Mr. Rahman turned to look at her. "You miss your father?" "Yes," she said simply. "He had to go away to find work, but he hasn't come back yet." Mr. Rahman's heart felt heavy. He wanted to say something to comfort her, but no words came. Pihu hugged her stuffed rabbit tightly. "Sometimes, I think he forgot me," she whispered. Rahman felt tears in his eyes. He remembered the times he had forgotten his own family. The birthdays he missed, the dinners he did not attend, the calls he never returned. For a long time, he had chosen work over love. And now, sitting beside this little girl who was so brave, he felt the weight of his choices. The sky grew darker. A few drops of rain began to fall. "Do you want to come to my home? My mother makes warm tea," Pihu offered suddenly. Raman looked at her. Was this little girl really inviting a stranger to her home? But in her eyes, there was no fear. Only kindness. He thought about the cold and the rain. And something inside him said yes. Okay, he said softly. They stood up together. Pihu held her rabbit in one hand and reached for Raman's hand with the other. He felt a strange warmth when their fingers touched. As they walked through the park, the rain became heavier, but neither of them ran. They walked slowly, side by side. Raman thought, maybe this little girl was not just a child in need of help. Maybe she was the help he needed too. That day, on the bench at Maple Street Park, a lonely CEO and a small girl began a story that would change both their lives forever. The rain had stopped by the time Mr. Raman and Pihu reached the small house at the end of the street. It was a simple home with bright curtains and a small garden where colorful flowers grew. The smell of fresh tea and something sweet filled the air. Pihu's mother, a kind woman named Mira, smiled warmly when she saw them. Pihu, you brought a friend, she said softly. Pihu nodded quickly. This is Mr. Raman. He was sitting alone in the park. Mr. Raman felt a little shy. He had never been to a home like this, where love and laughter filled every corner. Mira poured hot tea into small cups and handed one to him. Thank you, Raman said, feeling the warmth of the cup in his hands. Pihu ran to the kitchen and came back with a small paper bag. I made extra sandwiches today, she said proudly. Mama said sharing is good for the heart. She handed him a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. Raman smiled as he took it. It was simple bread with fresh vegetables and cheese, but it tasted like the best meal he had in a long time. They sat in the small living room. The walls were decorated with drawings and photographs of Pihu and Mira. It was a home filled with memories and love. As they ate, Pihu began to tell stories about her school. She talked about her friends, her favorite teacher, and the games she liked to play during recess. Do you have children? She asked suddenly, looking up at Raman with her big, curious eyes. Raman felt a little uncomfortable. No, I don't, he said quietly. Pihu tilted her head. Are you lonely? He nodded slowly. I used to be lonely too, she said. Before my mama came to live with me. Raman looked at her carefully. You live with your mother only. Pihu smiled, but it was a small smile. Yes. My papa went away to find work. He said he would come back soon. But it's been a long time. Do you miss him? Raman asked gently. Yes, she whispered. But sometimes, I am scared he won't come back at all. Raman's heart ached. He wanted to say something to comfort her, but no words came easily. Instead, he asked, what do you do when you miss him? Pihu thought for a moment. I talk to my rabbit. I tell him stories about my papa. And sometimes, I draw pictures. Raman smiled softly. That sounds very brave. Pihu's eyes grew wide. You think so? Yes, he said. Bravery is not just for soldiers or heroes. It is for people who keep hope, even when things are hard. Pihu looked at him seriously. Are you brave, Mr. Raman? Raman laughed quietly. I don't know. I used to think I was. But now, I am not so sure. Pihu reached out and took his hand. I think you are. At that moment, the room felt warm and safe, like the first time in a long while for Raman. After tea, Mira asked him, would you like to see some of Pihu's drawings? Raman nodded eagerly. Pihu ran to her room and came back with a small pile of colorful papers. She spread them out on the floor. There were drawings of trees, animals, and many pictures of her family. "This one is my favorite," she said, pointing to a picture of a house with the sun shining brightly above it. "And this is our family," she said, showing a picture with 3 stick figures. One was a woman with long hair, one was a little girl with braids, and the third was a man who held a briefcase. "That's you," she said, smiling. "I thought maybe you can be in our family if you want." Raman looked at the picture closely. The man with the briefcase stood next to Pihu and Mira, and above them was a big heart. He felt something he had not felt in years, a hope that maybe he could belong somewhere again. Mira smiled quietly. "Pihu talks about you a lot," she said softly. "She says you make her feel less lonely." Raman felt a lump in his throat. He was not sure what to say. "I'm glad to hear that," he finally said. Pihu jumped up and hugged him tightly. "You don't have to be alone anymore," she said. "We want you to be with us." Raman looked down at her small face. For the first time in a long time, he felt that maybe family was not about blood or money. It was about love and being together. That night, when Raman returned to his apartment, he sat by the window and looked at the city lights. The world outside was busy, loud, and full of people chasing success. But inside, Raman felt something different, a quiet feeling of peace. He thought about Pihu's words, her smile, and the picture she had drawn. Maybe, just maybe, he could find a new family. Maybe he could find a way back to happiness. And maybe, the lonely CEO was not so lonely anymore. After spending time with Pihu and her mother, Mira, Mr. Raman felt a strange new feeling inside him. For the first time in many years, he felt a small hope, a hope that maybe he could change, that maybe he could fix some of the broken pieces in his life. But even with this hope, there was one thing Raman had not done for a very long time. He had not called his own family. He sat in his big, empty apartment one quiet evening, holding his phone. The screen showed a name he knew by heart, his sister's name. He had her number saved for years, but he had never pressed the call button. He looked at the phone for a long time. Memories came flooding back: his sister's birthday parties, the dinners he missed, the times she tried to reach him and he was always too busy. He thought about all the reasons he had told himself for not calling. Work was too important. He was too tired. He didn't want to face the past. But tonight was different. Tonight, he wanted to hear her voice. He wanted to say sorry for all the years he had been away. He wanted to try to be part of a family again. His thumb hovered over the call button. But then, fear stopped him. What if she did not want to talk to him? What if she was angry? What if she had moved on without him? He put the phone down without making the call. Feeling restless, he walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. The busy streets reminded him how fast life moved. And how easily people got lost. He thought about Pihu's question in the park: do people sometimes leave and forget to return? He asked himself if he was one of those people. Had he left his family and forgotten to come back? He sighed deeply. The next morning, Raman went to the office as usual. The day was filled with meetings, phone calls, and emails. But his mind was somewhere else. During a break, he sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria. He took out the small notebook Pihu had returned to him, the one with his notes and plans for work. He stared at it but could not focus. Instead, his thoughts were with Pihu and Mira. Their kindness had opened a door in his heart he thought was locked forever. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. He opened it. "Hello, Mr. Raman. I am Mira. Pihu and I hope you are well. We are going to the park this Saturday. Would you like to join us?" Raman smiled. This simple message felt like an invitation to a new beginning. That Saturday came quickly. The sun was shining bright, and the air was warm. Raman felt nervous but excited as he walked to Maple Street Park. He saw Pihu and Mira waiting by the old wooden bench. "Mr. Raman." Pihu ran and hugged him tightly. Mira smiled kindly. "We are glad you came." They sat on the bench together. Pihu took out a small box from her bag. "Look. I made something for you," she said. Raman opened the box and found a small, hand-painted rock with a smiley face. "It's to remind you to smile when you feel sad," Pihu said. Raman felt tears welling up. The simple gift touched him deeply. They spent the afternoon walking around the park, talking and laughing. Raman felt a lightness in his heart he had not felt in a long time. On the way home, Raman's thoughts turned back to his family. He knew he had to make the call soon. He could not keep running away. That evening, he sat at his desk and picked up his phone again. This time, he dialed the number. His heart beat fast as he waited for someone to answer. After a few rings, a soft voice said, "Hello." "Hello, this is Raman," he said quietly. There was a pause. Then, "Raman? Is that really you?" "Yes, it's me," he said, his voice trembling. Tears came to his eyes. "I have missed you." "I have missed you too," she said. They talked for a long time that night. He apologized for the years he had been away. She told him about their lives, and slowly, the silence between them began to fade. For the first time in a long time, Raman felt hopeful about the future. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be many things to fix, many moments to rebuild trust. But now, he was ready to try. He thought about Pihu and her innocent words. She had opened his heart with her kindness. He whispered to himself, "Thank you, Pihu." The next morning, Raman woke up with a new sense of purpose. He was still a CEO, still a busy man. But now, he had something more important to work for: a family. And for the first time in a long time, he was not alone. The following Saturday morning was bright and clear. The sun shone warmly through the trees, and the gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of flowers in the park. Mr. Raman felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness as he walked toward the bench at Maple Street Park. He had not missed a Saturday since he first met Pihu and Mira. Each visit felt like a small step towards something he had forgotten long ago: family. When he arrived, Pihu was already there, sitting with her mother, Mira. They waved at him with bright smiles. "Good morning, Mr. Raman," Pihu called happily as she ran to the bench. Mira looked at him kindly. "We are so glad you came today." Raman smiled and sat down between them. For the first time in a long time, the bench did not feel lonely. Pihu reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Look what I made for you," she said proudly. Raman carefully took the paper and opened it. It was a drawing, a colorful picture full of bright colors and simple shapes. There were 3 stick figures. One was a woman with long hair, one was a little girl with braids, and the third was a man in a suit holding a briefcase. Above them was a big red heart. "That's us," Pihu said, pointing at each figure. "This is my mama, that's me, and that's you." Raman's eyes grew moist as he looked at the picture. It was not a perfect drawing, but it was full of meaning. It was a family, his new family. Pihu smiled. I thought maybe you can be in our family if you want. Raman looked at Mira, who was watching silently. She gave a small nod and smiled. It is a very special invitation, Mira said softly. Raman took a deep breath and smiled. I would like that very much. Pihu jumped up and hugged him tightly. Yay! We are a family now. For a moment, all three of them sat quietly, feeling a new kind of warmth spreading inside their hearts. Later, Mira told Raman about her life. She spoke about the struggles she faced after her husband left to find work. How she raised Pihu alone, working hard every day. Raman listened carefully. He saw in Mira a strength he admired and in Pihu a hope he wanted to protect. Family is not just about living in the same house, Raman said thoughtfully. It's about being there for each other. Yes. Pihu said happily. Like how you came to sit with me when I was lonely. Raman smiled at her. And like how you helped me feel less lonely. They spent the afternoon playing in the park. Pihu ran around, laughing and chasing butterflies. Mira watched them with a gentle smile, and Raman felt a peace he had never known before. As the sun began to set, Raman realized that this day had changed him more than he expected. Walking home, he thought about the drawing Pihu had made. It was simple, but it was full of hope and new beginnings. When he reached his apartment, he looked around the empty rooms. The walls were bare, and the silence was heavy. But in his heart, something was different. He took out the drawing and pinned it on his wall, right above his desk. It was a reminder that family was not only about the past but about the future they could build together. The next days passed with small moments of joy. Raman started calling his sister more often. He invited her to dinner and shared stories he had missed for years. His sister was surprised but happy to reconnect. The old distance began to close. At work, Raman found he was more focused and happier. His heart felt lighter, and his decisions came from a place of peace. One evening, as he was leaving the office, he received a message from Mira. Pihu is drawing again. She wants to show you something tomorrow. Raman smiled. He knew whatever it was, it would be special. The next Saturday, they met again at the park. Pihu handed him another drawing, this time with more colors and more details. This is our family at the park, she said. You, me, and Mama. And the bench where we meet. Raman looked at the picture. He saw the bench, the trees, and the bright sun smiling down. I like it very much, he said. Thank you, Pihu. Pihu grinned. You're welcome. As they sat together, Raman realized something important. Family was not always about perfect moments or big things. It was about simple acts of love, kindness, and being there for one another. And that was exactly what he had found with Pihu and Mira. From that day on, the bench at Maple Street Park was no longer just a place to sit alone. It was a place of friendship, hope, and family. Raman looked at the sky as the sun began to set. He felt thankful for the little girl who had invited him into her life. Because sometimes, all it takes is a small hand reaching out to change a life forever. The days grew warmer, and the park at Maple Street was filled with the laughter of children and the chatter of families. But for Mr. Raman, Pihu, and Mira, every visit to the bench was something special, a small world of peace and friendship in the middle of the busy city. One Friday afternoon, Raman was still at his office, finishing work later than usual. His phone buzzed with a message from Mira. Pihu and I are coming to your apartment for dinner tomorrow evening. We want to cook something special for you. Raman smiled. He had never expected to have guests at his home, especially not this small, loving family. But he was excited and a little nervous. The next day, Raman cleaned his apartment carefully. He put fresh flowers on the table and made sure everything was neat and welcoming. He thought about how strange it was to prepare for guests after so long. When the doorbell rang, Raman opened the door to find Pihu holding her mother's hand. Pihu's eyes sparkled with excitement, and her small rabbit was tucked safely in her bag. "Welcome," Raman said warmly. Mira smiled politely as she stepped inside. "Thank you for inviting us," she said softly. They all sat around the dining table. Mira had brought a basket filled with fresh vegetables and spices. Together, they cooked a simple meal: vegetable curry and rice, with some warm bread on the side. As they worked, Raman realized how much he enjoyed the quiet moments of cooking and talking together. Pihu told stories about her school, and Raman shared funny things from his work. "Mr. Raman, do you have any pets?" Pihu asked suddenly. Raman shook his head. "No, I don't. But I used to want a dog when I was a child." Pihu smiled. "Maybe one day, you can have a dog. It will make your home even happier." Raman laughed. "Maybe you're right." After dinner, Pihu pulled out a small box from her bag. "This is for you," she said shyly. Raman opened it carefully. Inside was a tiny keychain, a small wooden heart painted with bright colors. "To remind you of our family," Pihu said. Raman felt a warmth spread through his chest. The little gift meant more than words could say. As the evening went on, Raman found himself opening up in a way he hadn't done for years. He talked about his childhood, his work, and the mistakes he wished he could change. Mira listened kindly and shared her own stories. She told him about the struggles of raising Pihu alone and how hard life could be sometimes. Raman realized that everyone carried their own burdens, but what mattered was sharing them with people who cared. At one point, the doorbell rang again. Raman was surprised. He opened the door and saw his sister standing there, holding a small gift bag. "Hello, Raman," she said softly. "I hope it's okay to visit." Raman's heart jumped. He hadn't told Mira or Pihu about calling his sister yet. "Please come in," Raman said, stepping aside. His sister smiled at Mira and Pihu, who waved shyly. They all sat together in the living room. Raman's sister looked around and then turned to him. "I missed you," she said simply. "I missed you too," Raman replied, his voice full of emotion. The room was filled with a gentle silence, the kind that happens when hearts begin to heal. After a while, Pihu stood up and held out her hand. "Will you be part of our family too?" she asked with a hopeful smile. Raman's sister looked surprised but smiled warmly. "I think I would like that very much," she said. That night, the small apartment was filled with laughter and stories. It felt different, full of warmth and new beginnings. As the night grew late, Raman helped his sister get ready to leave. "Thank you for coming," he said. She smiled. "Thank you for inviting me. I want to be part of your life again." After she left, Raman sat quietly, thinking about the day. For so long, he had been alone, building walls around himself. But now, those walls were breaking down. He thought about Pihu's simple words, "You can be in our family if you want." And for the first time, Raman knew he wanted to. He looked at the little wooden heart keychain on his desk and smiled. Tomorrow would be a new day, a day where loneliness no longer ruled his life. He was ready to welcome family, friendship, and love. Days passed quietly, but for Mr. Rahman, every moment felt like a small miracle. The once empty spaces in his heart began to fill with laughter, warmth, and the hope that comes with family. After the surprise visit from his sister, Rahman felt a deep need to heal the past. He realized that his loneliness was not just about being alone, but about the things he had left unfinished, words not spoken, feelings hidden, and mistakes left unspoken. One afternoon, after work, Rahman called his father. It was a number he had not dialed in many years. The phone rang twice before a tired but familiar voice answered. "Hello. Dad, it's Rahman," he said softly. There was silence on the other side. Then, "Rahman? Is that you?" "Yes, Dad. I wanted to talk. I have missed you, son," his father said with a voice full of emotion. They spoke for a long time that day. Rahman apologized for walking away from the family. His father shared stories of the years they had lost but said he was glad to hear his son's voice again. The call was not perfect. There were tears and difficult moments, but it was a start. Later that week, Rahman invited his sister and father to meet Pihu and Mira at the park. The idea of bringing everyone together made him nervous, but he knew it was the right step. On the day of the meeting, Rahman arrived early. He watched as Pihu and Mira walked toward the bench, holding hands and smiling. Not long after, his sister and father appeared. There was a quiet tension in the air, but Rahman could see hope in their eyes. Pihu ran to greet his sister first, and Mira smiled warmly at his father. Rahman stood in the middle, feeling the weight of years lift from his shoulders. They sat together, sharing stories and laughter. For a moment, the past seemed to disappear. Pihu showed everyone the drawings she had made, including the one with the big heart that included Rahman in their family. His father looked at the picture and smiled. "Family is about love, not just blood," he said quietly. Rahman nodded. "I'm learning that now." That afternoon, the group decided to have a picnic. They shared food and memories, and even Rahman's father helped Pihu chase butterflies. It was a simple day, but for Rahman, it was filled with meaning. He realized that healing old wounds was not about forgetting the past but about forgiving and moving forward together. That night, as Rahman sat by his window, he thought about how far he had come. He remembered the lonely days on the park bench, the kindness of a little girl, and the small steps that led to this new beginning. His phone buzzed with a message from Mira. "Thank you for today. We are a family now." Rahman smiled and replied, "Thank you, Mira, for showing me what family really means." He knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but he was no longer afraid. Because now, he was not alone. He had found family in unexpected places, through small acts of kindness, and the courage to heal. And that made all the difference. The sun rose gently over the city, casting a warm glow on Maple Street Park. The old wooden bench, once a place of loneliness, now felt like the heart of a small, growing family. Mr. Rahman woke up with a calm feeling in his chest. For the first time in many years, he looked forward to the day ahead not because of work or success, but because of the people who had come into his life. He prepared a small gift basket filled with fruits, flowers, and some homemade sweets. Today was a special day, Pihu's birthday. When Rahman first met Pihu, she was a lonely little girl sitting on that bench. Now, she was a bright, joyful child who had changed his life forever. He walked to the park, carrying the basket carefully. As he approached the bench, he saw Pihu and Mira already waiting, smiling happily. "Happy birthday, Pihu," Rahman said warmly, handing her the basket. Pihu's eyes shone with delight. "Thank you, Mr. Raman. You remembered." Mira smiled. "We are lucky to have you in our lives." They sat together on the bench, sharing the sweets and talking about dreams and hopes. Pihu said, "I want to be a teacher one day. I want to help children like you helped me." Raman nodded, feeling proud. "You will be a wonderful teacher." As the afternoon passed, more friends joined them in the park. Raman's sister and father came with his little niece, and the park echoed with laughter and cheer. It was a celebration not just of Pihu's birthday, but of new beginnings, of healing, and of family. Raman watched as Pihu played with her new friends. He saw the bright future ahead, filled with love and possibility. Later, as the sun began to set, Raman sat quietly on the bench, feeling the gentle breeze. He thought about the journey he had taken from loneliness and silence to connection and hope. He remembered the moment Pihu had told him, "You can be in our family if you want." Those words had opened his heart and changed his life forever. Now, surrounded by laughter and love, Raman knew that family was not just about blood or money. It was about kindness, forgiveness, and being there for one another. He smiled to himself. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly at home. The bench beneath him was no longer a place of sadness. It was a place where a lonely CEO found friendship, where a little girl found a friend, and where new families were made. And that was the greatest gift of all.